The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on an all-new Sports Stove podcast. We're talking Final Four, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers. Where do they end up? What do they get for them? And Major League Baseball opening day. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up to me?
Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove podcast presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. I'm your host, Vince Stover, joined by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, we're on the eve of Major League Baseball. How you feeling about it?
Doing good. You can see I got my Giant shirt on. I'm all ready for things to start tomorrow. Been excited about the fantasy baseball and trying to get everything lined up there. And, I think it's going to be a good baseball season and be fun to get started. Again, a lot of stuff, a lot of other sports coming down to the end here. And but baseball's starting up and be a lot going on this spring for sure.
Yeah, I actually have a fantasy baseball draft tonight, 10 o'clock p.m. I got a league with, guys all over the world are in this league. And so it's an odd time, but getting that last draft in time for opening day tomorrow. We'll talk about that and what is ahead. Last night, I hosted the Belly Up Sports Baseball Super Show on the Belly Up Sports YouTube page. Had a great time, lots of guests. And if you missed that, go to the Belly Up Sports YouTube page and you can find it there. And we talked about all the divisions, baseball, just baseball. We talked a lot of baseball last night. So that's exciting. Things going on. There's a big announcement tomorrow morning for EKU men's basketball. I am assuming it has to do roster related. I'm not sure exactly. It could be an extension for the coach. I'm not really sure what's happening. So I was going to ask the coach to come on tonight, but I figured he wouldn't tell us anything. So we'll just wait and let the announcement happen and go from there. So lots of things happening. But, of course, kind of getting, swept under the rug a little bit is the Final Four this weekend. And, Dad, I'm not excited about it. Honestly, I don't even know if I'm going to watch any of it. I don't care about any of the teams that are left. Do you find the fact that it's not your normal team something you like and you're interested in? Or are you like me and kind of like, I really don't care what happens?
I'd probably be somewhat interested in it because, we talked back during the season and I said this would be an interesting tournament because to me there wasn't 4 or 5 power teams, that at least, 3 of those are going to be in it from there. Even when we did our predictions, I only had 2 number 1 seeds going, to the finals. And of course, that didn't happen there either. So I think it's been a good tournament. I think it's been good for the NCAA. It's been good for basketball. To me, it's good for sports, rather than just, the big teams or big schools that kind of power their way around. I think that's been one of the good things about the NCAA tournament. Everyone's got a chance, and that's certainly been proved out, in this tournament. I haven't watched a lot of complete games, but I have watched a lot of games coming up there. And I think there's some very talented players. I think, for the most part, they play as a team. I think you're looking at teams here. You're looking at schools that, at least 3 out of the 4, if they win this, it'll be something really big for the school because, they never have. And so we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, I definitely plan on watching some of it. Paying attention, it's not quite like, if one of my favorite teams was in it. But again, I think with these teams, there's only one team that I'm really not real big on. And everybody else, I think, it's fun to see how it goes. So I think it's a good tournament. Be interesting to see. I don't know if the ratings will be, what they are a lot of times. But I think with the brackets getting busted so early, I think people will probably still be interested to see how some of these teams they haven't heard about are going to do. So it's not like just one underdog team that well, they're going to get beat and whatever. You got at least three, maybe you'd say all four underdog teams to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, you think through it basketball-wise, UConn years ago, I mean, Kemba Walker had his time, and but even before him, there were guys that, they were good basketball school. But it's been a while since UConn has been a good basketball school, though, honestly, in men's basketball. Miami, you don't think about Miami as basketball. San Diego State and FAU are teams. I mean, FAU had a phenomenal year, only 3 losses all season, but they're FAU, and they're a 9 seed, and here they sit in the Final Four as a 2-point underdog in the Final Four. And it's crazy to think that that's where we are, because even you projecting that, it's not going to be your normal tournament, you didn't see the highest seed in the Final Four being a 4 seed, even at that point, right?
Right. No, that's very true. There's been, it's been more wide open than I thought it would be. But again, been an exciting tournament. You had 2 teams that were in the first 4 that won a game and moved on a little bit, and I think that created some excitement. But then, I was surprised that these teams moved on through. I thought teams, it'd be a little more of what we were expecting, at least for a couple of the teams. So, and again, as I've watched, I guess I've watched all these teams play a little bit, but I was impressed early on with San Diego State. I mean, they're very talented, very athletic, and so we'll see how it goes.
Okay, first of all, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say you can only play who's there, but does the fact that you had all these early defeats and the road to the Final Four wasn't as difficult as it originally was going to be lined up to be? Looking at Florida Atlantic, they started out with Memphis. They beat them by 1 point. Then everybody assumed they were going to be facing Purdue. Well, nope, they got Fairleigh Dickinson in the next round. They beat them by 8. Then they get Tennessee, who's a 4 seed. They beat them by 7. And Kansas State, a 3 seed, who they beat by 3. So again, a 3 and 4 seed, still a good seed, but the road could have been tougher for FAU. And when you look at that, do you at all say, well, it's good for them, it's really neat for them, but they really got lucky? And you always have to get lucky at some point in time. But they didn't play a number 1 like San Diego State did. They got to play a number 10 in round 2. They still beat good teams. They're still a really good team. But it's the pessimist in me goes, man, good for them, but this could have been a lot harder than it was for them.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. They did have the easier road. I was really surprised they beat Tennessee. But like I said, they've definitely got some talent. They have had a good year. They dominated in the conference there, and was ranked a lot of the year. And so they have a good team. You're right. I mean, in some ways you say, you get the Final Four where you got hot at the right time, but they did get some help, with who they played, no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I mean, San Diego State and Miami both knocked off a 1 seed. UConn, they got a 3 seed as the highest seed they played this year against Gonzaga, and they smoked Gonzaga as well. And they took care of business in this tournament. Actually, UConn, so they beat, let's see here, who did they beat? They beat Iona 87-63. They beat St. Mary's by 15, 70-55. They beat Arkansas, dominated Arkansas 88-65, and dominated Gonzaga 82-54. Is there a scarier team in the tournament currently that did not beat a number 1 seed than UConn? Because, I mean, Miami still, they beat Drake, they beat Indiana, they beat Houston, and they beat Houston pretty handily too, 14 points. And then they beat Texas by 9. To me, that Miami-UConn game is the national championship game. The winner of that one wins it all. But I don't know. Do you view it that way, or or obviously anything can happen?
I think conventional wisdom probably says that. Really, the way UConn has been rolling, you would think UConn will roll through this on Saturday and then on Monday. But again, I've been impressed with what I've seen of San Diego State. And I think if they can get in the finals, they can definitely play with whoever's there. But again, the way UConn has dominated people, if they continue to be on a roll, then, it may not be as exciting in basketball if they roll over both games, So we'll see. But Miami, they really shocked me. Wouldn't have never thought that. And again, they beat some good teams, and they did it handily. So I think the games will be very interesting to watch on Saturday, and probably on the championship on Monday too. But because either way, if FAU's there, then it's kind of a Cinderella story, and that'll be interesting to watch. So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess again, I think at this point they're all kind of. I know 4 and 5 seed isn't as Cinderella-y as 9 seed, and honestly, a 9 seed, they're not that Cinderella-y either normally, but it's FAU, so it's going, wow, this team. To me, it doesn't matter who wins the tournament. It's a pretty cool story either way, because you made a run through the tournament when the number 1 seeds weren't even in the Elite 8, which is wild, absolutely wild. Let's look at FAU and San Diego. Florida Atlantic, again, only 3 losses all season. Counting the tournament, they're on an 11-game win streak. San Diego State comes in on an 8-game win streak. FAU puts up more points, 78 points a game compared to 71.5 from San Diego. But San Diego has the better defense, giving up 57 points a game. FAU 66 points a game. They shoot around the same percentage. They get around the same rebound numbers and assist numbers. San Diego State's defense, though, is a little better statistically than FAU. But again, Florida Atlantic and, San Diego State too. Nobody watches those games unless you purposefully want to watch a San Diego State game or a Florida Atlantic game. They're just not on the airwaves typically. So you come in here in this game, and like I said, San Diego State's a 2-point favorite in this game. Ultimately, what do you see happen? You seem pretty set on San Diego State. You liked what they look like. Is that the way you're leaning for this game?
Yes. I think San Diego State will win this one, but again, it could be, it could be anybody's game the way they've played. But I would pick San Diego State.
Yeah, I'll go the other way on that one and go Florida Atlantic again. They're just a team that's 3 losses. To me, that's a big deal. Even though, their schedule isn't as tough as most schools that are in the tournament, but they've looked really good. They've played really well. They've gotten lucky at the right time also. So I'm going to go that way. I'm going to go to Florida Atlantic in that game, and we'll see how that one shakes down. Now, Miami and UConn is an intriguing battle because of the run they've had in the tournament. Both teams have looked really good. UConn is a 5.5-point favorites coming into this game. These guys average almost the same amount of points, but Miami gives up 11 points more per game than UConn. So they're kind of banking this off of the defense of UConn versus the offense of any other team. So, again, UConn has been dominating this tournament, but Miami's won some important games, including knocking off Houston, a 1 seed. So when you look at UConn and Miami, which direction do you go? This is truly the teams that got hot at the right time.
Yes, they really did. Again, my favorite would be in this one would be Miami, but I think UConn, the way they've been rolling, probably should win this. So probably I would have to pick UConn, but I'm not a big UConn fan necessarily.
What do you not like? Do you have something against UConn? I'm curious about this.
I'm sorry?
Do you have something against UConn?
No, it's one of those teams that's just not my favorite team from there. I don't really have I wouldn't say there's anything really specific about it there. I'm just not, never been a big fan there from that standpoint. And, Miami, probably not necessarily a huge Miami fan either. Of course, Miami and basketball never been something I've ever really thought about a whole lot. So from that end, but again, I think UConn, I think as long as it's good basketball and people play well, and if UConn continues to dominate, then they deserve it. So.
Yeah. Now, of course, I grew up in Tennessee. You lived in Tennessee for a long time. I'm curious if the girls basketball plays any role in your dislike for Connecticut, even though it's a completely different team and everything like that. Does that have any role in your dislike for Connecticut?
That's probably where some of when you hear the word Connecticut again, when you were in Tennessee and, with the Lady Vols, you heard the word Connecticut, it wasn't a good thing. And so that's probably subconsciously that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Jim Calhoun was there for a really long time, and they haven't had the same success since he left. Dan Hurley has them now in the Final Four and a chance to build there. I'll go Connecticut. So I got Connecticut and FAU. You've got Miami and San Diego State. Or are you officially picking Miami, or did you officially pick Connecticut?
No, I'll say Connecticut and San Diego State.
You said you'd root for Miami, but you choose Connecticut. Yeah. So we'll see how that one shakes out. Again, the Final Four tips off Saturday evening. And again, I don't know. I'm all in on baseball right now, so I'll probably be watching baseball instead of basketball. But I might tune in here and there to the Final Four, so I can at least talk about it in the next week. And then, of course, the championship game on Monday as well. Looking forward to the conclusion of college basketball season. Let's transition over to some NFL topics. A lot of stories this week about Lamar Jackson. He said that he told the team at the beginning of March he wants to be traded. He doesn't want to play for Baltimore anymore. He basically told the fans goodbye on Twitter. Thank you for everything. See you later. But it doesn't feel like there's a huge market for Lamar right now. People don't want to spend the money on a quarterback that they don't think can stay healthy. I look at it and go, if I'm the Colts, I'm at pick 4. I'm not going to get one of the top 2 quarterbacks. Why not go for Lamar Jackson? And yes, it's more expensive than drafting a guy, but you know what you're getting in Lamar Jackson. You have no clue what you're getting in Anthony Richardson or Will Levis at number 4. So my thought is the Colts should 100% go after Lamar Jackson, but they don't seem interested in doing that. So is Lamar Jackson going to find a home other than Baltimore?
I don't know, because I think the sticking point really is the finances and the money. And I don't know that any team wants to go in on a Deshaun Watson deal. And I don't know, maybe they've done research and they don't feel like, they can sign him apart from a deal like that. I would think he will find a home somewhere. And there's a lot of teams that could use him. There's no doubt he'd be good. Now, when you say what you have with him, there is the issue with the injuries. So there's a little bit of situation there. But like I said, you have a great talent, and if you've got a team that you can, build things around with him, there's no doubt. I don't know that things are unrepairable in Baltimore, and he's not going to end up staying there. And but yeah, it's really drug out, and it's hard to tell what is going on. At least what you're hearing is nobody's really interested. Like you said, it's hard to believe that's true. I can think of 2 or 3 or 4 teams that it seems like would be interested there. I know you haven't agreed, but I always wonder if Atlanta doesn't make a lot of sense in a lot of ways. They keep making moves.
Yeah.
Made a big move today with a defensive player, and to me that one makes some sense. Even though they do have a young quarterback.
That's my deal. Is the way that NFL teams have done this recently. They draft a guy, and by the end of his rookie contract, that kind of becomes your ceiling to win the Super Bowl. because that's when you can afford to pay everybody else. But once he gets to the end of his rookie contract, you're in trouble. So why draft Desmond Ridder if you don't believe he has the potential to be something? And, I look at it. Yes, Atlanta is a place he could definitely go. They bring in Calais Campbell, who played with them in Baltimore. So maybe there's connection there. Maybe there's not. I don't know. Is Lamar Jackson better than Desmond Ridder? Yes, 100%. But are the Falcons a Super Bowl team if you add Lamar Jackson? And my answer is no. Indianapolis, on the other hand, if they add Lamar Jackson, are they more likely to go to the Super Bowl than with any other quarterback on their roster or anybody they could draft this year? And I think the answer is yes. So that's why I think the Colts make more sense than the Falcons. The Falcons make sense because they don't have a for sure thing at quarterback. So sure, they could get them. Tennessee is another team that they could be in the running for them too. Even a team like Houston, they're not going to trade the number 2 pick for Lamar Jackson. But that's an interesting spot. Those are the kind of places. But to me, Indianapolis, even Carolina, until they traded up to number 1, made a lot of sense. I thought they kind of in the same category as Atlanta, though. They're not going to win a Super Bowl this year with them, but they get better. And, and they do know what they have. They know about the injuries, but they know about them. It's not like a surprise thing. Whereas these rookies, they're coming in, and what happens if they get hurt? You don't have a plan for that. I don't know. I guess my thought is long-term for the Falcons, I think it makes better sense if they believe that Desmond Ridder can be the guy. Maybe not even this year, but think that he can be the guy in 2 or 3 years, then I think it makes sense to go with Ridder. If they don't believe that, then yeah, move on. Just like the Packers have always believed Jordan Love can be that guy, so they never got rid of him. To me, you get these teams that are giving up so quickly on these quarterbacks, they're never going to get a chance. And why draft them if you weren't going to give them a chance? That's kind of where I sit with it. I mean, I think Lamar could go, I think Indianapolis, I think Atlanta, I think Carolina. And then there was one other team I was thinking of. But anyways, those teams right there, well, the Jets, I mean, they're going to get Rodgers, but it makes sense for them to go get Miami. I think Miami would be 1,000,000 times better with Lamar Jackson than they are with Tua Tagovailoa. And they know what they have in both of them. So I don't know. I guess I'm surprised. Oh, here's the team you got to watch out for, though, Dad, because they're getting new ownership very soon, the Washington Commanders. If they can get this sale done with the Commanders and the new owners step in, because Ron Rivera said it's not worth the risk to sign Lamar Jackson. You get a new owner in, though, and they might say, we don't care if you think it's worth the risk. We want to sell tickets. And I could see them coming in and bringing them in. So there's options. But at the end of the day, Lamar was betting on himself, Dad. And I think the Ravens won that bet. Nobody else wants to pay the amount that the Ravens said they weren't going to pay. And maybe Lamar's best bet financially is to stick with the Ravens, but he feels disrespected. So will he be willing to mend fences? Ultimately, I think is the question you have to ask.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this one plays out, no doubt about it. Because the fact that Baltimore tagged him, but made it to where he could, be traded, that was kind of interesting there. So,
but they could match anything. So they tagged him so that he could sign somewhere else, but they could match it. And I think their thought is he's not going to get what he's asking for. So if anybody signs him, we can match that, and we still get him. But is he willing to stay, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I don't know. I would, when it comes down to it, yeah, he probably is. But right now he's trying to, get a trade and find somewhere else. And it's interesting because he's handling his own negotiations.
Yes.
He doesn't have an agent, so that makes it a little bit different and probably a little harder for everybody to work with in some ways also.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. In news that I didn't know mattered, the NFL now will allow players to wear the number 0. I can't say that I realized they weren't allowed to wear the number 0. So there's that going on in the world of football. And then, of course, there's the Aaron Rodgers situation where reports have come out that they're getting close to completing a deal. And the most recent report has the Packers getting second-round picks for Aaron Rodgers. I still would just be shocked if they don't get a first-round pick for him. Am I just being biased as a Packer fan? Or are we legitimately talking about not getting a first-round pick for Aaron Rodgers?
Well, at first I was surprised. I thought, well, yes, you have to get a first-round pick. But I heard today, where, again, Gutekunst had said that there was other ways to make this deal without that pick. I think a lot of it has to do with finances and cap room. I think that's part of the reason it's held up now, because whatever they want, they've got a little bit of leverage to get it. And the longer the Packers wait, there's going to come a point when it's going to save them a lot of cap room if they wait right up until training camp or something like that. I've read about it. Just to wait, there will come a point when it will save them from there. So I think there's financial talks here, whether it's restructuring the contract, whether it's money from the Jets. I think there's something where they want to alleviate the cap space if they're not going to get a first-round pick. I would think they would get picks this year, and I would think they would want, compensate a pick that would be depending on how the season goes. And I think that's pretty safe for the Packers, because Rodgers is going to be their quarterback. So unless he got hurt, I think you would get whatever you were looking at next year. I think they'd probably definitely like to have the pick this year. But again, I've heard that, they talked about this early on. And so, whatever the sticking point is, they know what it is. Of course, you had the Jets owner today. I think he wants to get it resolved. But, somewhere along the line, both teams are going to keep pushing. But the Packers do have the advantage because the Jets don't have a quarterback, and they need a quarterback.
Right.
So, they could say, well, okay, the Packers, go ahead and keep Rodgers and pay your backup quarterback, $50 million. But then they don't have a quarterback at all. So I don't think that's going to happen. Again, there's a lot of rhetoric, and the deal is we'd like to have this done sooner than later. The fact that it's drug on now, I don't know. I think the financial thing and the cap room and the way this deal is set up is part of what is going on with the Packers. Now, I agree with you. It doesn't make sense for Aaron Rodgers to not get a first-round pick, but you could get picks that would be substantial. And if they can get where they really would gain cap room, then all of a sudden, they jump into free agent market here, or even trades, and, things look differently from there. So they do have a good amount of draft picks this year. They've got some pretty smart people, so I think they know what they want. The Jets obviously, know what they don't want to give up. Yeah. I know you said way back when they let the Jets go visit him, a deal should have probably been in place. You thought they probably already talked about this and there's a trade ready. Well, obviously there's some kind of sticking point here. And I don't know that we're ever going to know the whole story. Again, the longer this goes, like I said, there's going to be things said on both ends, and there already has been this week, kind of refuting some of the stuff Rodgers said. The Packers said it was different. But, when you look at that all kind of makes sense. The Packers said, well, he didn't answer well. Rodgers said when he went into the darkness, he was 90% sure he was going to retire. If that's true, then, yeah, he probably didn't answer phone calls, and he didn't want to talk because he was going to, he thought probably he was going to retire. And like Gutekunst said, well, at some point I had to do my job and at least reach out if there's going to be a trade and see who's interested. Then his story was when they contacted, Rogers' people because they couldn't get a hold of him. They said, hey, he wants to play for the Jets. So, and Rogers said he heard from friends he was being shopped around. So there's, a lot of talk on both ends. But I don't know that either one is a big significant problem that'll hold on there. But again, Rogers has said he likes direct communication, and apparently he didn't provide that.
Well, the nice thing now is the Packers don't have to communicate with him. They're done communicating with him. They don't have to try to appease him in any way, shape, or form. At this point, it's just purely the conversation between the Packers and the Jets. And we'll wait and see what happens. Personally, I don't see how creating cap space for this year is going to be a great help. Maybe it comes down to signing guys, to longer term deals, that kind of thing, because they're not going to make a big splash for trades. They just don't do that. And I keep seeing people mock drafting a wide receiver to Green Bay. The Packers don't draft first round wide receivers, and they're not going to start this year. They're not going to do it to spite Aaron Rodgers. They're not going to do it for any other reason. They have a ton of success of getting second round receivers. They're not going first round for receiver this year. Am I right on that at least?
Yes, I would think so. Now, this, from what I understand, and we'll know more as we study it in the future, and maybe you've studied the mock draft already quite a bit. It may not be as deep a wide receiver group as you've had, but again, nobody ever heard of Romeo Doubs that I know of. His name wasn't up there, and they knew he was good, and they got him. So yes, you can get wide receivers down the line. From there. And again, I think they're going to, as soon as the Aaron Rodgers thing is done, they're going to jump into free agent market, either that or make trades, because I think they're bringing veterans in a couple of different spots. And one of them would be wide receiver, because they need a guy in the room who is a veteran there, and not somebody they're taking a chance on like Sammy Watkins, but somebody that's probably a little more proven. And maybe that's why they're trying to, get draft choices or a certain thing, to help with that situation. I want
to go back to what you said about not knowing Romeo Doubs. Forget even him for a minute. Nobody knew Devontae Adams. Nobody thought he was ever going to turn out to what he turned out to be. Probably the same with Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings. The list goes on and on and on in Green Bay for what they did at receiver. And they're not drafting a first-round wide receiver. If I had to guess, they're going D-line, but I could be wrong on that. But probably not wrong either. Let's see here. Any other NFL news that has stuck out to you this week? Right now, it's kind of that down point of kind of have to make up news in the NFL to some degree.
I was kind of interested in the NFL meetings, what came out of that, just as I was thinking about the thing about the Thursday night games. Everything in the NFL is about money, and this certainly proves that from there. There was a lot of talk about, they're going to have a lot of discussion and safety and all this, but one of the big things that came out of it was this Thursday night deal now that they don't have to have every team play on Thursday night. Amazon has really jumped into this thing with both feet. And, from what I understand, their ratings were good last year. They outdrew Thursday night game, outdrew the fifth game of the World Series. Things went well, and obviously they have been very aggressive at wanting to get better games now. The idea of the flex, that was interesting what the Giants owner said, and I kind of agree with that, or maybe the GM, but he said, that's really tough on the fans. The idea that, hey, we planned to go to a game, we've been planning on this, and then all of a sudden 15 days ahead, it's not going to be on the weekend on Sunday, it's going to be on Thursday. He called that abusive to the fans. I'm not sure that might have been a little overdrawn there, but it was interesting. But the idea of what Amazon could, if Amazon can come in 1 year and make this kind of splash and get this, then, I don't know what the NFL and TV is going to be like in 3 or 4, never long, 5 years from there. Something I heard a couple weeks ago, and you probably did, is that Amazon this year has been guaranteed a Friday game on Black Friday. They're not going to have a Thanksgiving game, obviously, but there's going to be a game on Friday because they feel like people are off work, and that'll be a good time. And from what I understand, that'll be a free game. Amazon will open that up. Now, how they're going to do that, I don't know. But the whole idea, they said, is to get eyes on their product. They know a lot of people have not seen the Thursday night games, and this is going to be an opportunity for everyone to see an Amazon-produced game. And they're really going after it. And if they can compete with everyone else this way, then, of course, the NFL just salivating because the next, TV contracts, my goodness, it was quite the thing this time. But it's going to continue to open things up. And I thought that was very interesting, the way they was able to make it to where some teams are going to play twice on Thursday, and some teams won't play on Thursday at all. So that means that, they'll definitely have a more favorable matchups, or they'll try to.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about money, though. You said it, and that's what it all comes down to. At the end of the day is how can they make money? Player safety, it's really not about that. Although I don't think the NFL throws player safety out the window, but the top priority is money, and I think player safety comes in underneath that. But either way, listen, you can complain all you want in the offseason about the NFL and how bad people they are. When it comes back around to the season, everybody's watching. They're all back in. So that's kind of the way it goes. Another league that's trying to get eyes on it is Major League Baseball. They open up tomorrow morning. We're broadcasting this live Wednesday night. Many people will listen to it tomorrow. So you'll be listening to it on opening day. Again, we've been doing the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball show every Sunday, talking about baseball. Last night, Tuesday night, I hosted the Belly Up Sports Baseball Super Show on the Belly Up Sports YouTube page. You can go back and watch that, get it all ready for you. It's also available on the Belly Up and Friends podcast. But I'm excited, Dad. Last night I turned on some spring training just to watch and hear the sounds and everything like that. Tomorrow at 2:20, I'll have my earbuds in, listening to Brewers and Cubs, and looking forward to it as well. It's Giants, actually, they're the first game of the season, Dad. Giants and Yankees at 1:05 p.m. Eastern time. For first pitch of this season, them and Atlanta and Washington, both are at the same time. So, what is the one thing you're most excited about when it comes to this baseball season?
Well, I think, again, I watched your guys or listened to your guys' podcast, from Sunday, and you guys talked about that. And it was either Kevin maybe or one of the people on there. I think one of the things is, definitely piqued interest was, the World Baseball Championships. So I think the thing you're watching is for Shohei Ohtani. How is he going to come out of the gate? How dominant is he going to be? And then it'll be, do the Angels. I think there's a lot of teams, as we've looked at them and studied them for fantasy baseball, can there be some teams that we don't expect that really, make an improvement and make a move? Will there be a little more parity in baseball, or is it very quickly going to be the top and the bottom and maybe just a few teams fighting there in the middle? So, and these new rule changes, that's going to be very interesting to watch. They've had to tweak that a little bit. There's been, some things in spring training where that hasn't gone super smooth. And now all the fans are definitely going to have their eyes on, the rule changes and the clocks and the time and all that. And I think that'll be the biggest thing in the first week or so, is just seeing how do these rule changes and everybody being able to see them. I haven't watched any spring training baseball, so just starting to watch baseball here this week and on the weekend be my first really chance to see, the pitch clock and all those things.
Yeah, I look at the baseball season this year. I think the top teams are going to be the top teams. Like, they're going to be the favorites San Diego, New York, Atlanta, Philadelphia. Those teams and Houston, they're all going to be at the top. But you're going to have teams coming into the bottom of the wild card at the end of this year that haven't been there recently. So I've got 2 dark horse teams, one for each conference. In the National League, it's the Arizona Diamondbacks. This team is going to be so much fun to watch. They're incredibly young. The pitching staff is a massive question mark, but the guys in the field, the offense, they're young, they're fast, they should be base running team as well. Arizona's got a chance because San Francisco, as much as you like them, they're at a weird spot this year. The Dodgers are at an odd spot this year with injuries, and they're kind of waiting for Ohtani next year. So there's potential for the Diamondbacks to make a move in the West and make the wild card. For the AL, it's not as big of a reach, but Baltimore, same thing with Baltimore. They're young. They got some really talented guys led by Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson. They got some guys, and I like Baltimore's pitching staff. I think Baltimore's a team that could battle up there with Tampa Bay to be getting a wild card spot at the end of the year too. So for me, it's Baltimore and Arizona as my dark horse teams. Do you have any dark horse teams to watch out for?
Well, in the American League, again, I don't know if it's a real dark horse, but I think Seattle will continue to be a strong team as they made improvements last year. And I look for them to be a factor there. In the National League, again, I'm real intrigued to watch San Diego because, boy, they've really got the players. So can they put that together and really dominate? As far as the dark horse, I'm not sure. I think my Giants are going to be better than a lot of people have said, but I don't know that they will make, be a playoff team. We'll see. I'm not sure about a dark horse for me in the National League. But I do think Arizona will be improved. I think you're right about that. But I think Seattle could be a team that could be a real factor in the American League.
Yeah, I think so too. Worst team in the league, is it Oakland or Washington?
Boy, that's a good one. Probably Oakland. Because again, they're looking at teams, somebody moving them somewhere else. And when you get into that, then, you don't have your fans backing you and all of that. But Washington's not good either. So the only hope for either one of them is some young players. And I don't know how much they have in their farm system, but young players coming up and really going. I know there's some guys on the A's that fantasy-wise people said, boy, take a shot at these. These are dark horses. There's a chance there, but I don't know if it's enough to make a difference in their schedule.
Yeah, I didn't say that. I want to clarify as a fantasy baseball show host, I said don't draft anybody from Oakland. Just to be very, very clear on that. And Washington's kind of the same way. I'm scared of Washington players too. I think Oakland's the worst team in the league. They tried to get bad, and they're trying to kind of rebuild from young guys over the next couple of years. Yikes. That being said, if you're a minor league baseball fan and you're in the Nashville area, the Nashville Sounds are a team you need to go see in the early part of this season because they are going to have guys that'll be playing in the majors for the next decade. In their outfield, especially. So if you're in Nashville, go visit the Nashville Sounds this year, and you're going to get to see some young guys that are going to be really good baseball players in the majors for many, many years to come. And I'm sure there's other as well, but that's just the team I follow. So with the Brewers, so I know there's a lot there as well. Dad, I picked San Diego and Houston in the World Series on the show last night. I don't remember what I said last week. Or your World Series predictions?
I would say San Diego, and I'm going to say Toronto, even though I think Houston would be very close there. So I would go with Toronto and San Diego.
Yeah, I think that's a fair decision there as well. Okay, anything else that I'm missing sports-wise you want to talk about?
No, like I said, that's there's a lot of other things going on. You've got the women's Final Four. I know you're just have rapt attention to the Frozen Four, but that's going on also this weekend in college hockey. And of course, we're getting close, to the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs here in the near future also. So a lot going on there. But right now, this weekend, boy, it's basketball. Baseball starting, and of course we always got the NFL, and hopefully, Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers will find a home, and we'll know about it soon.
Yeah, I feel really bad for those guys. I actually talked 10 seconds of college hockey on the baseball show last night with Brent. Talked about it briefly as he covers some I think minor league hockey things as well. But anyways, yes, indeed. All right. Well, then that's going to be it for us. Oh, I didn't tell our fine folks about Righteous Felon. I told you at the beginning we're sponsored by them. Well, better than that, I like Righteous Felon jerky, and you need to try it for yourself. If you want the purest jerky in the game, you got to go straight to the source. And Righteous Felon has partnered with the best natural Black Angus beef producers in the land to lock up supply and guarantee the best tasting, best textured, and freshest beef jerky in the market. Visit righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code BELLYUP. You get 20% off your purchase. And I love the Baby Blues barbecue, but in my most recent order, I had the newest flavor called Soul Survivor, a Korean barbecue flavor. Top notch. Very, very tasty. It goes into my top 2 with the Baby Blues barbecue as well. So go to righteousfelon.com, promo code BELLYUP, 15% off your purchase there. That'll let them know that we sent you as well. Follow us on social media at Sports Stove on Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with you Sunday night for a live Sports Stove fantasy baseball show. Back with you Wednesday night for a live Sports Stove podcast. Hope you'll tune in to each of those. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.